you look so handsome.
All right. This is our first YouTube live, and we're outside, so you'll have to tell us if it's too windy. And we're going to do
How does
our...
our hair look?
It's windy, so there you have it. So this is Thaddeus and Tomorrow.
Hi, everyone. Tomorrow, Thaddeus.
So as the matrix breaks down around us, you've started to see some of the videos that we've been posting to share with you the breakdown of the matrix and
100 reasons you should drink your pee. You seem to forget about that one.
I didn't even finish what I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
All right, so we're gonna give a weekly update in these videos on something that we learned during the week that's really helpful for the matrix as it breaks down all around us, so that we all can learn from each other and you can learn from all the things that we're studying and learning ourselves. It's supposed to be like almost summer, and it's been cold, really cold, like 28 degrees up until the last couple days, and then it went from 28 degrees to 80 degrees.
We had no spring.
Tomorrow it's supposed to be 90, and yeah, so now it's windy as the temperature shifts yet again. All right, so one of the things that I learned today,
I feel like this is like sharing in kindergarten or something.
let me start on I'm gonna share two things. One's gonna be on these tails of chemicals behind us, chemical tails, as Matt from Quantum of Conscience likes to say, the aerosolization of our skies. There's a good channel called Geoengineering Watch. I found it really boring, so I stopped watching it. But if you're really into that kind of thing, you can watch their videos. And I'm not really into listening to their videos and all the science. It just gets too dry after a while. So somebody had proposed a way to get rid of those aerosolized tails of chemicals in the sky. So I tried it. I'm going to do a video. I filmed it, but I'll share some of that on this. And then I'm also going to share about something that we learned from Fortune de Saint Germain. So Saint Germain's great grandnephew.
10.
10. And he shared something about the coming digital fencing of our society that I thought was really critical for us all to hear right now. It was critical for me to hear. So I'm going to share about that, the digital fence, and where things are going with cryptocurrency. And today being the 11th, we're almost at the full lunar eclipse here for the month of May in 2022.
Hey, it's 5/11.
It's 5/11. What does that mean?
I don't know.
There's 9/11, 3/11, 7/11.
3/11 was the beginning of
COVID's lockdown.
Are you supposed to say that?
I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah,
I'll have
probably
to
not.
censor myself a little more.
We need a code name, CV.
I'm not saying anything was wrong with it. I'm just saying that's when it started, was 3/11.
Yeah.
And it's the alternate of 9/11. So you've got 3/11 on one side of the equation as one of the pillars and 9/11 as the other pillar. So it's interesting that on 9/11 and 3/11, we had certain things happening. And then there's this convenience store. It's called 7-Eleven. So if you look up the founder of 7-Eleven, you'll realize why it was called 7-Eleven.
No way.
It's all in the gematria.
Whoa.
Or the gematria.
Gematria.
Working with numbers for a cult ritual.
It's like gem. GEM.
Kind of is.
Cool.
All right, so I'm going to share those two things. What's Tomorrow going to share?
Oh, so I was on this really cool like meditation with Shayla Sananda, and she was having Gary Kiss, who's like the U.S. distributor of this Elky wand ball, and it's some interesting technology. I actually sent out an email to our PrimalHacker crew about it, and we did a meditation with it. And during the meditation, he was talking about how when you eat and ingest dairy, and I'm not talking about like raw milk or whatever, I'm talking about like pasteurized, homogenized, like crappy dairy products, which the American Dairy Association has been pushing since their inception. I think probably in the 70s. I'm not really sure on that.
I don't know when that started.
Yeah, but I know like I'm a product of a child of the 1980s, and I remember going into the gym during the cafeteria, during lunch in the cafeteria, and there was giant posters, American Dairy Association, and I was a substitute teacher too, and even up until the 2019, there was huge posters that just pushed drink your milk, like we all got the milk indoctrination. And Gary was talking about how those types of milk, they're so distorted and they're irradiated, right? Like, you know more about that process of how they do that. Maybe you could speak to that. But then he was talking about how our bodies are channels, and we're like, basically we're antennas, and that when you put that type of distorted food product like into your body, and it causes all this inflammation, all these issues with people. And that's when like asthma like had a big spike in the 1980s and 90s, and all sorts of other chronic issues with people. And he said that it blocks information. So it blocks your body from becoming that antenna to like source energy and like earth energy and grounding, which I had not heard that before. And then he studies a lot of like blood work, and I'm not really sure what his title is, but
it's dark field. Well, he's a medical distributor, researcher, and salesperson that really gets involved in medical devices. So
medical devices. That's it. That's his background.
He left his medical device field for this Alkiwan ball, which is more of an ion photon type. It's kind of like, I would describe it as a crystal ball, but it's made in the Czech Republic using some special technology. So that's what he's doing now. And he does dark field microscopy, which is looking at live blood. Most people, when they're looking at blood, they're looking at dead blood and dead cells.
And that's what they base studies on.
Which don't act the same as live cells. Right. So when you do live cell blood analysis, you get a very different picture of what happens in the body when you do certain things.
Which is really interesting. So he was talking about, and then somebody wrote in the chat, they were like, what about gluten? And he was like, oh my God. He was like, you have no idea what gluten does to like blood cells when you're looking at them in the dark field microscopy. Am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really interesting. And he was like, that too is another like information blocker. And I was like, oh my God, think about how much gluten and how much like canola oil and just like all the rancid oils, all the nasty dairy, all the gluten, like all the toxic things. Like we were even talking today about the red lake dyes and how much
red food
dyes that are in like kids' treats and Skittles and like whatever. And most people are just like, oh, it doesn't matter. And there's so much toxicity in all of that. But I never like really thought that it was a information blocker until I heard that today. And I thought that was really interesting. So I would say too, think about like what in your world, and it just made me kind of reflect, like what am I ingesting in my world that is an information blocker? And what is keeping me from being more of a conduit and an antenna? Because I want more downloads and I want to use my intuition more. And the more we learn, the more intuitive I am, the more grounded I am, the more intuitive I am, the more Kundalini yoga I do, the more intuitive I am. It's so cool. And the more urine therapy I do. Thaddeus is like, oh God, here we go. Everything begins and ends with urine therapy.
For tomorrow. I would say though, on the gluten thing,
yeah,
that's like traditional, non-organic, glyphosate sprayed gluten.
Yeah.
So I haven't eaten gluten in 10 years, but now I am.
Right.
But I've got organic, local, whole wheat berries that I either sprout or I ferment to make like a sourdough bread. So it's a very different process than eating gluten from the store, that in order to dry the wheat berries, they spray them with glyphosate, which is Roundup. So it's not just like they spray to kill the weeds and some of the glyphosate winds up on the wheat berries and maybe washes off in the rain. No, they harvest the wheat, they get it to the wheat berries, then they spray it with glyphosate to dry it, to make sure they don't get moldy and damp. So they're coated in that. And then you're eating those things. Well, don't do that.
What Thaddeus taught me was like every single piece of wheat, and like you could read the Wheat Belly book, and maybe it's a different perspective on that, where it's like more in the wheat. But what he taught me is that every single piece of wheat that is in this country is sprayed with glyphosate.
Well, that would be the organic wheat too, then.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's the wheat. Oh.
We don't eat wheat from a different country.
We don't.
Where do we get our wheat?
I don't know. From Azul Standard. No, they just got burned down. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's from the U.S. It's from Montana or South Dakota.
Okay, well, maybe you didn't say that was organic then. I don't know, like whatever. You
They
always
they
tell me
use
that.
they use glyphosate on all the wheat except the organic wheat, where they're not
okay.
allowed to use it as a drying agent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Otherwise,
then
so
you
I
just
think what I was saying is all the wheat gets sprayed if it's not organic.
Okay.
It's not like there's some non-organic wheat that doesn't get sprayed. They
Right.
spray all of it.
Okay.
But the organic wheat you can't use Roundup on.
And there's wheat in like everything, like soy sauce. There's wheat in everything.
I wouldn't say everything, but way more than you would imagine.
So many things.
Yeah, most of your sushis that use
What?
sushi
Oh, sushi.
that
Yeah.
uses the fake crab meat is all wheat based.
Oh yeah.
So it's in way more than you would ever expect as a thickener, like in sauces and in soups as a thickener. In the soy sauce, like soy sauce is supposed to be made from soy, but it's actually made from wheat in most cases, unless you ask for it specially.
Right. So, just circling back to like, what are you putting in your body that is so far away from like local food and single sourced food or organic food that is blocking information from you? I thought that was a really
Yeah,
interesting.
I've never heard that.
Yeah. So, I don't know. That's it. That's all I have. I mean, I have more, but
So I'll talk then about
yeah.
the digital fencing of the society that we're currently in. And so I've been learning about this for a while, and it really came to my attention in early 2020. And I did do a podcast, which you can find. It was with Stationary Astronaut, and it was either March or April 2020. I mean, it was really...
It was 3/11/2020.
It was really early on. And so I started talking about that. And then in May of 2020, you can go back on the YouTube channel, and I did a what's coming in the fall of 2020 video, where I talked about the vax. I talked about that was coming back in May 2020. I talked about the digital fencing and digital currency that we're moving to, as well as destruction of travel that was coming for 2020 and 2021. So you can go back and watch that video, and you can see that it was a pretty good call back then for what was coming. So I did a podcast where I was still learning quite a bit. So I would say the podcast itself had some information that I wouldn't agree with today, but I think the predictions for the fall of 2020 was still pretty accurate. And it's now coming even faster into play. So the very first thing that I talked about was central bank digital currency, CBDCs, central bank digital currency. And that's a cryptocurrency, as you're going to start to see cash evaporate. So how is it evaporating? Anyone notice what's going on in the stock market this week? This is Shemitah year. So it's year 7 in the Jewish calendar. It's also like the 49th year. So it's like super Shemitah, 7 times 7. And it's also going to be the 50th year next year of that Shemitah cycle. So that's the golden or platinum jubilee. Platinum jubilee, which is like forgiveness of all debts. Did anyone hear or see Joe Biden talking about forgiving all student loan debt? So things are kind of getting a little interesting right now. And what I predicted and what I've been hearing and what I heard again from Saint Germain, so Fortune de Saint Germain.
Count Fortune de Saint Germain. What if you were a count?
No,
he goes, no thanks.
So what we learned is agrees that the schedule has been accelerated for cryptocurrencies to take center stage, and for cash and the money in your bank account to be converted to a central bank digital currency that you can only access through an appropriate social credit score and a device like your phone or some sort of a chip, right? And so if you don't have one of those things, you're not going to access your bank account, a ticket to get on an airplane, a pass to get out of your city, perhaps, if you don't play that game. And so with the acceleration of that, he's convinced that's going to accelerate into 2023 versus being pushed out to 2025. So he's predicting a central bank digital currency rollout next year. And we've got a big diesel truck going by here. It's probably going to get loud for a minute.
We'll just wait.
All right.
Pretend we're on a farm. It's a farm truck.
It's a farm.
remember that?
No, he still has it. I've seen him out this year.
Oh, yeah.
He drives a tractor around town.
It's actually cute. It's like a red tractor. Not as cute as that boy, though.
So
He's pointing at you.
he's talking about the acceleration. And you can see in Shemitah, typically there's a financial collapse in some market segment. So, for example, in 2001, it was the tech stock bubble. And prior to that, it was the bond market. This year, maybe because of Platinum Jubilee next year and Super Shemitah 7 times 7, I think it's going to be all of it. So cryptocurrency is the new kid on the block. And if you've been paying attention to the crypto market since Friday last week, it is in a full-on crash. I mean, it's crashing. And they crashed Terra Luna, which is supposed to be a stable coin, last night, early this morning, so on 5/11. And it's a stable coin, so it's pegged to the US dollar. It's always supposed to be valued at $1, and it went to 22 cents.
And why is that a big deal?
Well, because everyone puts their money in stable coins while they're deciding what cryptos to purchase. And let's just say they parked $1 million in a stable coin, so the value is always going to be $1, waiting for the rest of the crypto market to bottom out, and then they're going to pour money into cryptos as they got closer to a lower price level. They just lost half their money. So now they have $500,000. It's starting to come back up to $1. But what happens is as these cryptos like Luna, we're about to head into a lunar eclipse in a couple days. And the crypto coin Luna eclipsed or crashed. It went dark essentially, and it lost 99. It's about 99% of its value so far.
How can they be just so obvious with it?
But you can't predict that. You can see after the fact way more easily than we can predict. Like, oh, there's a lunar eclipse and they're going to crash Luna. Like, who knows? They could have like skyrocketed Luna to $10,000. They could do lots of things. But in hindsight, you see the eclipse is coming. And you see they took as a ritual, you can go to Waters Above Crypto. He does gematria and technical analysis, and he shares all the details about how they crashed or eclipsed Luna during the lunar eclipse. So very fascinating stuff. But what happens is as those cryptocurrencies drop, sell orders that people have as limits start to pop off. So people are like, if Terra Luna, it's at 180 yesterday, I think about where it was, and today it's at $1, somewhere in $180 to $1, they had a sell order like, oh, if this thing gets below $50, sell. So every sell order that was in the system tripped to sell more of the coin, which crashed it further. So anyone that wanted to buy and was waiting for a really good deal to buy a $180 crypto coin, it's now $1. So I think that's really interesting. Okay, so the thing is, on the digital fencing, that's about to get tighter. So the thing that just happened in 2020 through 2021, really 2022, we've gotten a little break, was to determine, it was the beta rollout to determine how easily and how things would work. And that's why they tested different countries differently. Sweden did nothing. Australia, New Zealand, super crazy. Shanghai right now, finalizing that beta test. In the US, various states did different things. Our federal government did one thing that the UK government did different. They've got all their test data set into the computer now. And it was so, and this is the words of Fortune de Saint Germain, it was so successful. People fell into line and kind of did what they were told so easily that they're accelerating the plans for the next stage, which is the digital fencing and moving to a central bank digital currency. So if you collapse the crypto market, the stock market, the bond market, and the housing market, and gold and silver all at once, all those little things that people put in play as strategies to avoid one of the crashes, if they bring it all down, now everyone is in this position where they're at base level, and meanwhile the dollar is losing value, which means prices that we see are skyrocketing. So we lose all of our finances, our salaries are not keeping pace, and then the price of everything skyrockets. That's the scenario we're in that they kind of created with the supply chain and with everything else going on, meaning they can accelerate the plans to move everyone to, hey, would you like your student loans forgiven? Would you like your mortgage paid off? And would you like $100,000 in this new central bank digital currency? However, they can turn that on and off whenever they want, and you have to use it with your device, your phone, which means you can't go anywhere without it, which means you're constantly tracked, and you can only spend it on what they allow you to spend it on, and your social credit score dictates what you can spend, how much you can buy, where you can go. So as the self-driving cars and the 5G Internet of Things gets rolled out at the same time, kind of amazing, they can control with those electronic grids where people go if you voluntarily, this is volunteerism, you have to voluntarily contract into the system. They're not going to say, hold a gun to your head and force you to do it. That's an immediate spiritual win if they do that. You can listen to Matt at Quantum of Conscience if you want to learn more about that type of thing. But you have to volunteer yourself, voluntarily sign up and volunteer to be part of that system. So you are going to be offered a choice in the next year or two to be part of the death-based system that is being run, or part of the new system, the new Jerusalem, which is being formed right now.
I thought it was Perusalem.
Peruthalem.
Peruthalem.
Thalem in Peru is the new Jerusalem. So it's the center of power is moving from Jerusalem to South America to Peru. Remember, the center of power forever has been Europe and the northern countries. I think it's going to flip to the southern countries, and Peru is one of those ultra meccas where we think it's going to flip and it's going to be the new Peruthalem. Anyway,
the Levette channel talks about that.
You have to go to Brighteon, or you can find her old work on YouTube under Levette on Brighteon 11, Levette 11. You can find her work, and she describes the Peruthalem, New Jerusalem, and
she'll teach you some cool shit about alchemy and astronomy or astrology.
and astronomy.
Astronomy.
Make sure that you know that it's voluntary, and being part of a new system that's not offering you comforts, it's not offering you free money, it's not going to offer you a cell phone in your hand with constant connectivity, it's not going to offer you a universal basic income, it's not going to offer you healthcare, it's not going to offer you retirement or your pension, it's not going to offer you Social Security. And so, okay, you can type it into the chat. It's 11, Levette 11, and we'll type it into the chat. So it's not going to offer you those
Levette
things.
11?
11, Levette 11. And we'll type it into the chat for you. So it's going to be very compelling, and it's on Brighteon. It's going to be very compelling for people to sign up because they're going to have lost, let's just assume you lose your pension, your retirement. I mean, if the stock market really does crash during Shemitah, and the crypto market crashes, and the housing market crashes, and the bond market, like, you're not going to be left with a lot, but don't lose hope. Like, this is amazing because it tells you how much power we all have, that they would have to do all these things to kind of, in their mind, force us to sign up for these new systems they're about to roll out where you are constantly controlled. And if you don't want to be a part of that, it's going to be scary. It's going to be very scary for all of us. And it's new, and all new things are scary, but your infinite spirit signed up to be here now, and it goes on forever and ever. So signing up for a system that you know is wrong just because it's easier is not going to help you in the long term. Now, everyone has to make their own choice. Some people have kids.
We're getting a big win.
we have kids.
Sorry.
Someone's going to tell us to stay on point.
I was supposed to be a theater kid. I didn't get that opportunity.
Tomorrow's going to go next, and she's going to do an interpretive dance for her next topic.
No, I'm not. But I do have some conjecture about our 5G talk that has to do with this after you're done. So on point.
Remember that you volunteer and you take care of your spirit. You do what's right for you. No one else can tell you what's right. Just because you sign up to be in the metaverse and be tracked and controlled, that doesn't mean that you're no longer in our tribe, and that doesn't mean you've damned yourself forever. That's actually not the case at all. Good and evil are the same side of the world, right? It's like, here's a piece, and you have one side here and one side here, but it's the same hand. Just because my pinky moves this way and my thumb moves another way, they're still in the same hand. So good and evil are both necessary. And if you want to sign up for that new system, there are souls and spirits needed there to bring awakenings to people that are in that system. So it's not right or wrong. It's what you're ready for. And some of us, whether we've been through this a million times or we're brand new here, or we came from another star system, or we came from the Hollow Earth, or wherever we came from, for whatever reason, we're not willing to sign up for that new system. And that means that we're probably going to give up a lot of what we call privileges, and we're actually going to find our way into brand new natural rights that we have always had. And probably live in a way more sane and healthy way for our spirits and our time on this crazy matrix that we live in as it crumbles all around us. I can just see it crumbling, and the city centers will be like these meccas of like, this is the only place you can get goods from China and India and make things new again. Meanwhile, like everything else goes to, destruction, and we get to rebuild from like these beautiful natural materials. So it'll be, I just honestly see a split coming, and it's going to be really helpful for you to make peace with where you're going to be when that split happens, where you're going to draw your line. We kind of knew and we know where our lines are drawn. There's some lines that haven't been crossed for us already that we've had to draw in the sand. And those have had consequences in some cases. And in other cases, we kind of showed that the lines that we were being asked to cross on a mandatory or mandate basis were not real when we truly questioned them. Okay, so that's what I have to say about the digital fencing, and it is coming, and likely it's coming next year during the Platinum Jubilee, when debts can be forgiven and a central bank digital currency is starting to be rolled out after the financial crash of whatever market they decide to crash this year, or all the markets. But it's a beautiful opportunity to invest during that time if you have any funds left to invest in, and not freak out, and to know that this is all accelerating our own spiritual light bringing forces on this, whatever you call it, that we're on in this matrix that we're recreating. Unfortunately, it seems like we're recreating it into two different planes.
But why do we have to, I just had a thought, like, why do we have to call this the Matrix? Just because the Matrix movie and like other people call it that? Like, maybe we should think of like a better name for it.
I like that name because it's a very popular movie and people kind of know what you're talking about.
I know, but it also is a little bit like, it's a little negative, and it's like, oh, you're in the Matrix and da da da. But maybe
Matrix means mother or womb. So it's actually a very positive thing. It's where you create life. And you create a new reality.
Because when I think of like the movie and like you're in the Matrix, it seems like you don't want to be there.
That's where people are, and that's where people have been, is what I would say. Like, people have been in this place where they've been pushed these frequencies and this training in our government indoctrination schools.
Wait a minute. I don't think anybody knows where we are.
So we've been pushed these things, and our consciousness has, in my opinion, my consciousness has been hijacked and lowered, so that I'm moving through. I've been sleepwalking through life up until about 2001, when I moved to Colorado. So I moved to Colorado in 2001, started learning about all this crazy stuff about the Fed and whatever. And that's when like 9/11 happened, which was like, as I was kind of learning these things, I was like, whoa, how did this happen? Right in that same year I started learning. So up until that point, I do feel like I was in this kind of like created matrix to keep me asleep. And if you remember, the early Matrix movie was green. The new Matrix 4 movie is blue. It's a new Matrix that was recreated. And what happens at the end is that the people that wake up get to recreate the Matrix in any way that they want. They get to have the power to recreate their reality.
And I do remember Levette 11 thing that I was talking about. She was saying that too. Like, when you are entering like this new world, Matrix, whatever you want to call it, that if you are creating, from your thoughts, create our reality. But if you're having like a negative experience, you're going to create that. And she was like, so she's saying like, that's going to be horrifyingly like there's no descriptive word for what she was saying.
So why do you think the news is all such negative information and overload? Because
so if
it keeps you in the state.
Yeah. So if you have positive thoughts and you're creating, like, follow Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? So if you keep having thoughts that are creating the world you want, like, that's what you're going to create in your matrix. Is that kind of what we're saying?
Yeah. I mean, we're saying that we live in some sort of reality that we're all just starting to become aware of. I don't know that we know exactly what it is, but it does appear that
we're just all dead. Like we died in
that is irrelevant.
2012.
That honestly could be the case, but it's irrelevant, because whether we're dead or alive, the point is we can recreate this matrix in the way that we want it to be by perceiving positively and creating it in a positive way to allow positive things to happen to us and those around us. But we have to constantly stay in that state, because in the time we're in,
Hmm.
whether we died in 2012, and when you die, let's say it takes you 10 seconds to die, it could seem like 20 years. So maybe we're in that 20-year, 10-second time period,
Right.
where we are dead, which means you can infinitely create because you're just in your own mind. So whether you're there or not, when we're in the time that we're in now, manifestation is accelerated. Meaning negativity accelerates negativity faster than ever before.
Mm-hmm.
And positivity and light can accelerate faster.
And like the more we know that, oh my gosh, like what about people? I think about like, what if people who don't know this stuff? I mean, is that why we want to talk more about this? Because like, what if you're so asleep right now that you're not even like, you don't even know that you're going to have to make a choice soon? And
they won't know, and it's not their time. Like, we can't push. It's not our job to wake anybody up, and it's not our job to push a spirit to go through a process that it signed up to do later.
But I guess I'm so thankful that I'm here now, like in this moment in time where I have a conscious awareness that I know, you know what I mean?
Isn't
like,
it so
I
much
know,
better to
right?
know like all this stuff around us is fake, and we don't have to like be so fearful about it.
Right.
Where other people are very fearful right now.
A lot of people are going to get caught off guard and not know like what the fuck is going on in any way, shape, or form.
We went from the 2020 thing, and then I just don't like to even say the words, but we went from that right into war, right into inflation, right into abortion, right into now a crash in the financial market. We'll see, but it's looking like that's coming soon. Maybe not quite yet, but the crypto market for sure just crashed and is still continuing to crash. We'll see what happens. The stock market is dipping, not in a full crash yet. So again, like fear, and it keeps stacking. But if you can sit back and say like, this is the greatest time in history, like to be alive during this time, and to...
I love that you just said sit back and like your t-shirt is an alien sitting like this.
The fake alien invasion that's coming because what is it?
Oh, is that coming?
Well, I think it's this week. For the first time, everyone, in 50 years, the U.S. government is going to disclose UFO information publicly. First time in 50 years.
On extraterrestrials?
Extra means
like from Antarctica.
Here's the Terra, the Earth. I'm not saying it's flat, but just pretend with me for a minute. Here's the Terra. Here's the extra Terra. They didn't say outer Terra. That'd be up there.
Yeah.
They said extra Terra. So the aliens...
And Terra means turtle's back.
The aliens from those outside lands we're not supposed to know about. I'm super into like flat Earth theory. I don't believe in the flat Earth. However, I don't believe in what NASA and the textbooks taught us. So what I love about the flat Earth movement, I just have to throw this out there, is like they are willing to question what's been taught.
Yeah.
And that's like, if you're a believer in science, the only way science progresses is by questioning the theories and proposing a new theory and figuring out which one works.
No questioning. You can't question science.
I forgot. Like the scientific method is no longer supposed to be used.
Oh my God. What's the movie we just watched the other night? That was so good.
So there's two movies. One is called Level 2020 and the other is called Level 2, and it's called 2022, and it's free on YouTube for now till they take it down. It's all about, they're like flat Earth people, but
I like the second one.
The second one is way better than the first one, and
I'll write it in the chat.
Yeah,
Level 2.
Level 2, and you can put there's a link. It's on my email, but
is it like two?
The number 2.
Okay.
What's really amazing about it is like they're not telling you the Earth is flat. They're telling you what you've been told is wrong. Here's how we know it's wrong and can prove it to ourselves. You can prove it to yourself that what you're being told is wrong. And being able to do it yourself rather than just rely on someone else to tell you is always kind of nice.
But you can prove anything to yourself.
Can you prove to yourself that the world is a globe? Like, can you actually get above it in a spaceship yourself, like you personally, and see that it's a round ball? No. But there are proofs that you can physically do.
Didn't Elon Musk and like all those
That's not you. Did you do that?
No, I'm just saying, like, didn't all those guys do that? I'm just playing devil's advocate, but
those guys are actors. Yeah. So you're going to believe an actor over yourself.
Well, you can wear a cowboy hat into space and like Bezos and
So if you're going to believe something, and somebody offers you a way to prove it to yourself, you physically can prove it to yourself that what you're being told is wrong, sign up for that. And just like, you can't prove everything to yourself, but if someone's like, hey, on a globe, this is exactly how far you can see with any instrument, and beyond that is the drop in the horizon. No instrument could see beyond that because it'd be going out here, the globe drops down here, and then you can prove to yourself using technology we have today that you can see further than what they say. In fact, a lot further. In fact, so much further that it disproves the entire theory of what they're presenting. But you can do that yourself. And I'm talking to the camera, and the camera is facing in the direction away from the spinning of our supposed globe. Okay, so the globe is spinning like this. Okay, it's spinning this way.
Wait, it's not spinning.
And if it's spinning this way, and I'm talking in the direction it's spinning, so I'm talking this way and it's spinning away from me. So it's spinning away from me and I'm talking. Sound waves, like radio waves and microwaves, are not bound by gravity. Therefore, they're not attached to the earth. So if I speak in to the west, or I yell, my sound waves are traveling at, let's say, 500 miles an hour. That's the speed of sound, right? But the globe is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour away from me. So how could my 500 mile per hour sound waves ever catch up with you as you move away from my sound waves at 1,000 miles per hour, but they're traveling no more than 500 miles per hour? That's impossible by any science that you can imagine. And no scientist or engineer, I'm an engineer, no scientist or engineer has been able to explain that. So again, I'm not trying to.
Did they not explain it by not talking about it?
Hang on, I'm not trying to.
Sorry. You're not trying to.
I'm not trying to say that the earth is flat or a globe. What I'm saying is, I love that there's people willing to question and pose ideas for other people to help solve, to figure out like, hey, if this is true, this should be true. And if this is not true, then how could the other thing be true? So if someone can prove some of those things that are being disproven, like the sound not being able to catch up to 1,000 miles per hour, I just think that's super awesome that people that people are questioning those things. And that to me is exciting, that like that is philosophy and science at its greatest, when you question the narrative and come up with something new for the world to explore, like these maybe old ideas again. It's exciting.
Yeah. I had like 2 other questions during your talk, and now you distracted me with all the I don't know, but I think like everyone's perspective is also different. So like whatever's, and I was trying to talk to a friend of mine's husband one day about this, and I'm like, well, whatever's true for you and like your perspective, like that's not true for me, and that's not like in my reality, in my perspective. So I just think like the whole negotiation of like having to prove this and prove that, like it's all bullshit. Like nobody has to prove anything. I don't know. I just
I would say with scientific minds. So like you're more open to like, I can, as I'm being tomorrow, I can intuitively know these things, and that's a higher level of knowing. Like I think that's awesome. Some people are never going to get to the intuitive knowing if you can't break them out of their mold. And some people, the way you break them out of their mold is say, oh, you're an engineer, so you know these calculations are 100% real. So then tell me, if you run this calculation, this spinning of the earth at 1,000 miles per hour away from the sound wave is impossible. And then that can break that train of thought for them, and it opens them up to a better way of thinking.
Okay, so this is crazy, you guys. Check this out. So Free Spirit 77, hey, thanks for joining. She or he, I'm not sure, says, strange. I've been trying to type something into the chat and it won't let me.
I mentioned tales of chemicals, maybe.
I know, and you said like...
I said a lot of code words, didn't I? Should I say them all at once?
You said
Kobe's 9/11, 7/11, 3/11.
He said too many things.
I didn't say anything negative about any of those things.
Thaddeus.
Now try typing into the chat. It's going to be even worse.
There's no surprises here. Sorry, Free Spirit 77. Thaddeus has a potty mouth on YouTube.
I 100% believe all those things are real.
And wait, let me go back to, and Isaac Secunda says, my experience with waking people up. Oh, she's too many words. Yeah. My experience with waking people up has brought a lot of negativity towards myself, and I now have come to terms with that fact. The best way to keep your knowledge to yourself
Everyone
is
can
be
read
selective.
the comments too, so it's helpful to read them to yourself and then to comment on them because everyone's seeing the comments.
Okay.
So they're like, yes, we can read that.
We're just learning here. Okay, so, but I think that's really interesting. Totally. Like, you can't wake anybody up, and nor should you even expend any of that emotional energy on doing anything that.
I would argue that.
Why?
Not that part.
Oh.
I would argue the I keep quiet and be selective. Like, we do the same thing. However, the keep quiet thing.
Yeah.
So Fortune de Saint Germain, one of the highest level alchemists that we know about in the world, grandnephew of Saint Germain, right? So he inherited the alchemy from that person. And he says it is not the time to be quiet because we need to find each other. And it's true. Like, I 100% agree with you. And I agree with Isaac. Like, don't wake anyone else up. That's not your job. When they're ready, they will seek and they will find these things. But if you're not just talking about what you know and what your truth is, then no one's going to find it.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, one of the coolest things somebody said is, I'm not talking, this is not me, this is what they said. I'm not talking to this camera and making these videos for you. I'm making them for me, for breadcrumbs. If I ever have to come back here, I want to wake myself up.
That's amazing.
And I was like, oh, hopefully I'm not going to come back here and I'm going to break out of that type of reality. But the person was like, I want to wake myself up when I come back. This is for me.
My favorite thing I heard today. Oh, you're so cute. I love that.
So yes, don't try to wake anyone else up. That's not your responsibility. You are not the waker up of somebody who's dreaming, and nor should you. That's dangerous.
Say what Lovette says too.
If you wake somebody up, you need to deal with the karma and the outfall of waking them up. So when people crack open and wake up, oftentimes there's a lot of trauma that needs to be released and crazy things can happen. And that's on you for waking them up by trying to do that and doing it maybe too early than they were ready. They might have, like, everyone's going to wake up. One of the things that Fortune de Saint Germain says that I love is everybody in this matrix, I don't want to call it a planet, or a plane T.
Everybody
plane
here
T,
now.
Plane PLANET.
Do the Ram Dass thing, just like, we're here now.
So what he says, don't let me lose that train of thought.
Sorry.
What he says is everyone is an ascending master. You're not an ascended master. Everyone here is ascending. Everyone here will wake up. Every one of us. Lovette, Fortune de Saint Germain, every high level person will tell you that every single spirit is going to wake up. It is not our role to determine when, it's their role.
Right.
We only deal with ourselves, but we have to talk about this because for those people waking up, they want to know that there's other people out there and they're not the only ones. And we want to know about you all and not feel like we're so isolated. You know, our YouTube channel is shadow banned. They've deleted a few of my videos for different warnings. So I think I'm on a warning already.
They don't let people type in the chat and they're live.
On Facebook, the first podcast that I was ever censored on Facebook Live. It was a podcast, so you can find it in any podcast space.
It wasn't a Facebook Live.
Yep, we were.
It was?
Yes, it was also being. So if you let me finish, I did a podcast which you can find, but it was being live streamed on Facebook.
I didn't know that.
And everybody watching it, they cut the video feed so you could still see us, but no sound came out because they said we were playing illegally obtained music. There was no music in any of the episode ever, which I thought was really funny. So that was the first time back in March or April of 2020 that I was ever censored and started to question like what was happening with the social media stuff.
And that was just crazy. We were like, what? Because we didn't know a whole lot at that time. We're just like, what the hell? What's going on here? So we were waking up at that point.
And our feeds, cool. Like we had like 14,000 followers on Instagram and like we still have a lot, but like no one engages. Like they don't show our content to anybody. And so we're like, are we the only? So we're like, what are we doing wrong? Like, are we the only ones that are talking about this and no one else knows what we're talking about? And so we just got quiet for a really long time.
Yeah. But now we're back. I just had a psychic reading today, and she said you need to open your throat chakra and speak your truth more.
Like,
This
oh,
is
yeah.
like, oh dear God.
Oh, that's great.
No.
Looking forward to it.
But what does Ram Dass say? He said, "Tell the truth and love everyone," and I love that. I think we should end with that. So we were gonna do like 10 minutes, and it's been like 45. Well, thanks for being here, you guys.
We're gonna try to
hope
do
you
this.
guys enjoyed that.
And we're gonna try to do it weekly. Sorry to talk over you.
You better watch it, because he does that sometimes, but he's really good, like in our relationship, about being like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna work on that. And when Thaddeus says he's gonna work on something, like that's the first time you have done that in months. And you did it like twice right in a row. That was really bad. Remember? Do you remember? He's like, no, I don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about relationships. Oh, that's too hard. Baby.
So yes, you talked over me when I was trying to get a point across. So that's why not right in that exact moment.
I see. Okay.
So it goes both ways, but yes,
Yeah.
I didn't want to talk over you, but I wanted to let people know before we signed off that we're going to try to do this at least weekly, and send us like in the comments or email, let us know what topics you want us to discuss. And we can do the thing that Waters Above Crypto does. If you don't catch his Friday live streams, way more eloquent than I am. He is like, I love his energy. I love following him. I love his message. Every Friday afternoon, about 5 o'clock, 4 to 5 o'clock Central Time, he comes on for about 2 to 3 hours. He did 4 hours the last 2 weeks. Doing this kind of a thing right here. He has a huge community, about 400 people that join each live stream live, and he only leaves it up for 24 hours because of the stuff
taken down.
Yep, because of the stuff he talks about.
It's kind of brilliant.
So we may or may not do that depending what you'd like us to talk about.
This one will probably get taken down.
We don't want strikes against us, because that makes it so we can't put links in our descriptions and a whole bunch of other things on YouTube. It really shadow bans us by getting a warning.
And we need to tell everybody why they should drink their pee. We have a lot of content to get out there.
So
it's like you stopped.
So if you want to learn more about Shivambu, a 5,000-year-old practice, tomorrow is not an expert but a seeker in that space, and we can.
I'm a seeker and a finder. That is.
And we can certainly talk about that.
Yeah.
If that's of interest at great depth. All right, this big truck's going through again.
All right, everybody, much love. Thanks for joining.
Namaste.
Namaste. The truck again.